Hi everyone, welcome back to our S6 philosophy class. So in this video recording, we are going to continue and hopefully conclude our discussion of the idea of historicity. This is a particularly contemporary idea. If I didn't make that clear in the previous recordings, it's really a product of it's an idea that's a product of our contemporary time. This idea that we are makers of history. Now, towards the later half of Albert Dondeyne's text, he talks about the three components of historicity, and some of these things, a couple of these components, are already familiar to you by now. The first component is embodiment. What do we mean by embodiment? If you remember, this means that the human being is an embodied being, or to use Gabriel Marcel's phrase, we are embodied spirits. So what does that mean? This means that we are able to express ourselves through the body. Okay. First, we exteriorize ourselves in the world through the body. So what we have inside, so to speak, inside of us, we are able to make that present to other people through the body. We are able to display, to show ourselves to other people in the world through the body. And as a project, by project we mean something that is yet unfinished, we are able to realize ourselves, to complete ourselves through the body. So by using the body, or in some cases by working on the body itself. Now, we can also try to understand this in terms of work. It is through work that we are able to express ourselves, to express who we really are. Maybe it's a tragic aspect of contemporary life that not a lot of people are really able to express themselves through work. Many people are stuck in jobs that they dislike, if not hate. But if you go back to the conception of work of the early Marx, for instance, Karl Marx saw the human being as, first of all, Homo faber, or man the worker, man the creator, man the maker. And it's through work that, the human being is able to express himself. And at the same time, we've said it many times, work is the transformation of matter, the transformation of the world by the human spirit. We transform the world into something that resembles us. Now, you can see that, work itself is a product of our freedom, but given the embodied character of human existence, and given the situated character of our existence, whatever exercise of freedom that we have, that is necessarily, that needs to be situated within the products of the work of other people. What do I mean by that? I'll just give you a simple example. Let's say, if you're playing basketball, if you're a basketball player, you need to be familiar with the rules in order to be able to play. Okay. Now, playing itself is a product of freedom. And that's an expression of your freedom, of the use of your body. It's also kind of a self-expression when you play this particular sport. But suppose that you become good at it and you're such a good player that you're able to change the game. When you change the game, you know, that becomes a kind of the situation for future players. So that's what we mean by this. That your work situates the exercise of freedom in the future. Whatever you produce today, that will constitute the situation in which other people who are free, who also are embodied beings and who also express themselves, the product of your work would constitute the context in which people in the future would have to create, would have to work, would have to express themselves, would have to use their bodies to express themselves. Okay. The next component of historicity is intersubjectivity. We saw this aspect already, this idea, when we talked about Levinas. That's the experience of the face of the other reminds us of a fundamental truth about human existence, which is our being here is actually a being together. Human existence is necessarily and fundamentally, at its very core, coexistence. It's just a fact that when you exist on Earth, you exist with other people. Now, again, we can try to understand this in terms of work. Dondeyne really focuses on work because work is the transformation of matter by the human spirit, and that is how history is made, through work, through action. So, intersubjectivity, our work, that, whatever you're doing, whether you're creating things, acting in accordance with your culture or passing on your culture to the next generation, through practices that you repeat, that you hand down to younger ones, to children, let's say, or, every time that you use a language that you've received, that is really connecting with other people. These things, these cultural practices, by things I mean cultural objects, and then also cultural practices and the very languages that you speak, these are things that we received from other people. So we receive from other people, and we acquire these things by listening to them, by listening to other people, by receiving. Okay, but at the same time, it's work can also be understood in more positive terms, in more active terms. Our work is something that we at the same time give to other people. This is something we deliver to other people by speaking about our work, or speaking itself. The very act of speaking is, in a way, sharing our work with others. The product of culture is being shared. So in working, we are in the presence of others, whether we like it or not. And at the same time, a lot of these things that we do, the products of our labor, of our work, they are intended for others. It's very clear in the case of a teacher, for instance, that my work, for instance, is intended to be given to others. But even if you work in a sector and an industry that's far from education, let's say you work for a company, you're part of an enterprise, even these things, whatever you do, you write reports, you do research, whatever you do, these things are intended for other people. Okay. And your work, at the same time, it becomes a kind of meeting place. These are things that other people can see, other people can, they receive, they see, other people can comment on, other people can build upon. So it's also a meeting place for you and others. It's also a meeting place of, facts that are well established and new ideas, because some other people can try to revise your work and can try to improve upon your work. Lastly, the third component of historicity is temporality. What does that mean? Temporality simply means, that we exist in time. Throughout the history of philosophy, time has been understood as linear, as clock time, as a series of nows. But, according to more contemporary philosophers, time is really an experience of presence. What does that mean? That your present is not, something that's closed off. It's really something that is open to the past and the future at the same time. You don't live in a present that's isolated from everything else. You are who you are because of the past, let's say your parents, your family background. And whatever you do in the present right now, spills over into the future, influences the future. Okay. And anyway, what do we take to be real? Just to understand that the temporality is a matter of presence. What we take to be real is anything that has real presence, that's actually there, that we can see and touch. Okay? Things that are objects of possible projects, of things that we can do in the future with other people. And what we take to be real are things that serve as meeting points. Through these things we meet other people, as we've said before. Now, at this point, we try to close this discussion of historicity. I hope those three components were clear. So what have we seen? Albert Dondeyne has a simple thesis that whether we like it or not, whether we realize it or not, we are historical beings. History doesn't only happen to us, we are creators of history. How do we know this? If we look at our pre-philosophical experiences, by degrees we develop a deeper and deeper understanding of what history is. We start out by learning the names of things, and in that way we become connected to our family, our culture, our community. Later on, we study history in school and we learn about great figures in history who made momentous choices, choices that changed the course of human history, of human life, okay, fundamentally. And then later on, as we progress in our studies, we get the chance to engage great figures in the history of humankind and the history of ideas, to engage them in dialogue. We were given this chance to enter into a more intimate relationship with these people in the past, and in this way we're part of a conversation that can continue on into the future. And we just saw the three components of historicity: embodiment, intersubjectivity, and temporality. We exist as embodied spirits, we exist in others, and we exist in time. Dondayne's last point is to make a connection between historicity and solidarity. So he talks about the real sense of being a we, or the we being connected to other people. And in this way, and he talks about the readiness to respond to our time. This sense of solidarity is part of it is being thankful for the past, for what came before, and having this realization that we are responsible for the future, that we can take action that is oriented towards the benefit of other people. Because according to Dondayne, our task really is the task of building a world, engaging in action, so that we can create a world where there is room for all, where there's room for everyone. All right. I hope that has been clear. I'll see you in the next lessons.